everybody. If you heard me talk about what my favorite Christmas movies are, you probably haven't, because a lot of that list really was improvised. Everything's improvised, what am I saying? Apparently, I don't really know how much I can say for what are my all time favorite Christmas movies. They're all really good. That being said, however, there are that variety of Christmas movies I don't think are that good. There's that variety of Christmas movies I actually do think are pretty bad. And that's where this list comes in. So I decided to finally narrow down and talk about what my least favorite Christmas movies are. Instead of referring to what my favorites are, let's talk about what my least favorites are. These are all, in my opinion, the worst Christmas movies I have seen. This is just a continuation of movie lists I will make, talking about the movies I like the least instead of the ones I like the best, so y'all can understand better. So, this list is just, movies Christmas themed that I do not like. It's going to be, sorted down from hate to really despise. It's that kind of list. So just keep in mind, I hate these movies. This is my top 10 least favorite Christmas movies I've ever seen. So let's get started. I'll Be Home for Christmas. Anybody know who Jonathan Taylor Thomas is? Around the 90s, he was mostly considered to be the hot actor, the actor that everyone loves to read about, the actor that most girls pay money to see a movie just because of him. He wasn't in too many popular media, but he was somewhat popular, mainly known to, getting girls' attention. So I have learned a lot more of his popular roles. Like, I know he provided the voice for young Simba in The Lion King, which is neat. But then there are some of his other movie roles, some of his live-action movie roles. Not a lot of them are memorable. This one being a Christmas-themed film from Disney, telling a story about him trying to get home to his family for Christmas. The downside, he is not likable at all. Yeah, the problem with this movie is that this kid is mainly known for being a jerk, he's rude and all that, and he only wants to go home to his family because they offer him something cool in return. So it's mostly just the story of him trying to get home so he can get something nice or whatever, and I guess it's trying to have him develop, but from what we have to see, development isn't really that good, and this character just really annoys us. And also the humor falls flat because the kind of humor you get in this movie is the kind of humor that you would expect from an actor this not memorable. Regardless, this movie is not memorable, it's just not funny, it's annoying, and doesn't really do much justice to a song title, if you know what I mean. Christmas with the Cranks. What would you get if you took the Santa Claus, Tim Allen, and combined him with a Halloween star like Jamie Lee Curtis? A story about a husband and wife who decide to not celebrate Christmas because their daughter's not going to be home. So they try to not celebrate it, but everyone in the neighborhood bothers them about it. That's where you get this comedy. A comedy where these two try to avoid everything Christmas related, which is supposed to be the running joke. But it's not funny because the majority of it's either cruel, mean-spirited, or just forced. It's kind of like that kind of humor that you're supposed to laugh at, but end up not laughing at because it's mean-spirited. The movie also consists of a ton of annoying morals. Like, the movie's moral, I guess, is don't skip Christmas or whatever. I don't know what they're trying to say for this, but this movie showed it's not the casting that's the problem. I kind of like seeing these two together. I just don't like the characters they were given and the story that they were put in. With the characters they have to be to really mess us up, give us a cruel meaning, and just, focus on more rude characters. I feel like that's just going to be the case for most of these movies. Jack Frost. Not to be confused with the famous character who's known for creating ice storms. Also not to be confused with the snowman named Jack Frost who appeared in a couple of direct-to-video B-movie horror films. This Jack Frost stars Michael Keaton, a dad who dies in a car accident and is reincarnated as a snowman. It's as ridiculous as it sounds. It's kind of like the horror Jack Frost, only this time it's kid-friendly. It's not a comedy film, I can at least say, but it is in some problems. It's very upsetting. Not upsetting, it's just, not something I can watch through because there's nothing cool to it. I mean, there is a lot of cool stuff, if you know what I mean, but it's nothing that I can enjoy for the sake of how the movie tries to unfold. Because this movie is just so boring to sit through. You have a story about a dad who turns into a snowman, and you just get a lot of boring and unnecessary stuff. Stuff that tries to be intense or fun, but just ends up boring you out or just upsetting you. It's stupid, and if you look closely, yeah, this Jack Frost does look kind of creepy, so I feel like this could have also passed on as a horror film. Actually, I think I remember when I was younger, I saw the poster for this movie. I thought this was supposed to be a scary movie. I thought this was supposed to be about a rude snowman. I did not know the story. So when I was younger, I saw the poster and I thought, geez, this movie looks scary. I don't want to watch it. Mixed nuts. Anybody a fan of Steve Martin? Well, I not necessarily much. Steve Martin's funny in some things. I found him funny in stuff like SNL or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but I think that's about it. Because besides that, I personally don't find Steve Martin to be as funny as other people do. Regardless, movies like this kind of do bug me for it. I have just recently put a review on this movie. This was the most recent film I've seen, and it is really bad. It's not funny at all. It's humor. It talks about suicide during Christmas, and it's bad in many ways about it. You have a star-studded cast. You have Steve Martin, of course. You have other stars like Julia Lewis, or even Adam Sandler in one of his earlier roles. And yeah, Adam Sandler is super annoying then. Okay, I have said Sandler has mixed reception, but sometimes he's funny, but when you have movies like this, he is super not funny, just super annoying. Anyway, I don't really know much else to say. I have just seen it, but I think I regret it. This movie is not funny at all. It's annoying. It's not really something I can enjoy. It's just, I can't like it. I just hate it. So what do you get when you take the star from Always Sunny in Philadelphia and have him in a Christmas movie with the good old Ferris Bueller himself? This comedy about two neighbors, one neighbor is obsessed with Christmas lights, that he tries to have a ton of Christmas lights in his house just so he can be able to see it from Earth, from space. The other neighbor is annoyed by it. A story like that could go either way. Some people could enjoy it as a childhood favorite. Other people look back at it more and more just to hate it more and more. And unfortunately, I kind of go with that. Because not only does this movie not make me laugh at all, with it mostly just being these two against each other, which is just mainly the only joke we're supposed to get from this movie, but it needs a moral. When you have a family movie, you gotta have a moral to it. It doesn't matter if it's a comedy, you still need to have a moral. And this movie doesn't really have much of a moral. I guess it's trying to befriend your neighbors, don't go against them, but the movie tries to throw it off by talking about Christmas lights, saying that Christmas lights should be so big, they should be this ridiculous. It was bad enough that in Christmas Vacation they had all the lights that could pretty much cause a ton of lawsuits, but they did it in a funny way. It was funny then. For this movie, it's not funny. Not because they stole it from there, but because they try to down in on the comedy. And the movie does try to be serious, but something like this does not need to be taken that seriously, so you gotta have a moral for a comedy, but you also have to make sure the comedy works in a good way. And this movie does everything but that. The first Santa Claus movie was good. It was a fun comedy. I enjoyed it a lot. The second Santa Claus, well, it fell flat, but it wasn't awful. That is this movie, though. The third Santa Claus. God, this movie was atrocious. This movie? Apparently Santa Claus has a new contender, Jack Frost, who tries to steal his role, which he does, so he has to save it. The problem? Jack Frost could not be more annoying. Played by Martin Short, Jack Frost is just the most annoying, probably the most annoying Christmas characters I've ever seen. I've seen weird depictions of Jack Frost. We have just talked about a Jack Frost character, but he wasn't annoying per se. He just wasn't interesting. This Jack Frost is just, you remember him a lot, but not in a good way. He's supposed to be the so-called comedic relief, but like I said, he's just super, super annoying. And I feel bad because I feel like I can laugh at Martin Short sometimes. I think he should be a funny character, but he's not. He's annoying, and this movie proves why. I'm sorry, I know some people enjoy Martin Short. I could enjoy him as well for when he is funny. But in this kind of role, he can't be funny at all, so I can't say I enjoy him in this. And that's really the biggest gripe with this movie. Besides that, a lot of the other issues are bad, like the story arc is stupid, it's a time travel thing, whatever. But I mostly just want to criticize this Jack Frost character because I cannot stop forgetting about him. Home Alone 3. So, you have the first two Home Alone movies. They're classics. I love them a lot. They're funny, they're amazing, they're probably my favorite Christmas comedies of all time. But then you have the third Home Alone. The biggest problem with this movie, as you can tell, is that none of the cast members from the first movie are in this. Actually, none of the characters from the first two movies are in this. This is a completely new story arc and a completely new world, focusing on a new kid who apparently is supposed to be the new... Yeah, apparently I guess because the actors were getting old, they needed to continue the story, even though I feel like we've kind of already had enough of this. Home Alone 3. This time, this kid has to deal with not robbers, but actual criminals, actual terrorists. Yeah, that tries to be the big sketch of this movie, that the criminals are now terrorists who are much more dangerous. But that doesn't really go anywhere. You think something like that would make for a much more awesome and hilarious movie, but it doesn't. Because this movie forces it in. It doesn't feel like a third installment. It feels like a remake of a letdown remake. And that's not a good thing. And it just gets worse from there. Because after this, they try to make have more characters for the stories, and the more characters they try to include, they try to replace Kevin, the more they just make it worse. So, just stop with the Home Alone movies. We get it, okay? It's a fun story. It was fine with the first two, but now you're just phoning it in. No longer is it funny. Now we're just getting annoyed by it. Black Christmas. Black Christmas from 1974 is a horror movie. It was a rare, bizarre horror film, but still a fine one. Then there were a few remakes. They weren't all memorable. Some I could say were bad. The one I could say was the most bad was definitely this one. Black Christmas from 2019. 4 women in a horror story. These 4 women have to deal with the disastrous of horror terrorizing this Christmas. That's really all I could say about the movie. What would you get if you had Mean Girls in a Christmas horror film? Well, that's kind of just what this is. It's Mean Girls in a horror movie on Christmas time. Does that work? Not at all. Do I have much else to say about this movie? Not at all. It's bad. It's just a horror story with these 4. There's really... It's so bad I can't even really say it well. I have really no good way to say this movie. All I can say is it's a bad horror comedy that you can't remember very well, because the stuff you get in it doesn't scare you, make you laugh, or just give you any sort of interesting nonsense. It's a bad kind of nonsense you would not want. Ernest Saves Christmas. Ernest is a character that has appeared in a few movies around the late 80s and early 90s. Ernest Scared Stupid, Ernest Goes to Jail, Ernest Goes to School, Ernest Goes to Camp, and then there's Ernest Saves Christmas. Is Ernest a funny character? Well, what if you had Pee Wee Herman and have him played by the guy who would later go on to voice Slinky Dog for the first 2 Toy Story movies? Well, Ernest is kind of just like that. Is he funny? I can't say he is, because I really don't think he is that funny. He really does just try to put you in that good comic mood, but I don't see it. I can't really see it much. Ernest Saves Christmas. He has to save Christmas. Santa Claus is in trouble. Santa Claus is now a creepy dude. He's now a awkward guy. And yeah, I guess that's kind of what he has to go through. Again, this movie doesn't really have much else to say. It's a comedy film that doesn't really have a moral, because it is just trying to not be taken seriously. But like I said, you still need a moral for a movie, especially a Christmas movie, even if it's just a comedy. So this moral I can't remember, because I mostly just have to remember this movie for all the dumb comedy it throws at us. There's comedy like this guy just messing things up, or Santa Claus being awkward to most real life people. That's really what most of the comedy comes from. And I cannot say I enjoyed it. While Jaws the Revenge isn't really a Christmas movie to some people, it has taken place in Christmas time, and this movie has been known for its style. So it's kind of like one of those non-Christmas movies that are Christmas movies, like Gremlins, for example. The problem is, this movie is horrible, like everyone says. Jaws 4 is often cited as the worst horror movie ever. People cite it as one of the worst movies of all time. And I can agree, Jaws 4 is terrible. I personally do think Jaws 3, the third one, is the worst, but Jaws 4 does definitely make a close second as being the worst Jaws film. The first Jaws movie was a classic. It's one of my favorites ever. The second Jaws movie isn't that good, but it's fine. Then these two movies. Jaws 4 has Christmas to it, but I'm not going to talk about the Christmas. Let's just talk about how bad it is. They still try to bring in the shark with more epic stuff, so we have new characters. These new characters are not interesting at all. They put them in a new environment. The new environment's not interesting at all. They try to give us some new frills, which again aren't inspiring at all. They worked amazingly when we got to see this for the first time, the first Jaws. But now when we have to get to this movie, we're just not cool with it anymore. Nothing new is in this movie. It's all just the same nonsense that we were used to already. So really, this movie just doesn't try to have any new amazing stuff. It just tries to add new characters to continue with the same thing. So that doesn't work. And I feel bad because Michael Caine's in this movie, and Michael Caine deserved better. Regardless, Jaws 4 is a bad movie. It's a Christmas movie because of its setting and such, so always say that. But yeah, terrible movie. Don't watch these movies. Just watch the first Jaws. Maybe the second Jaws if you feel like it, but besides those two, skip the rest. I guess that's it. So, Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you will enjoy your Christmas like I do. It's just, it's a lot of roughness to take in these times of year, so let's hope to more better Christmas movies to come and more better Christmas movies I can watch. But as we get closer, I think my next video is going to be for next year, so stay tuned for 2023 where I will continue talking about movies that I don't like. See you then.